It was an ordinary sunny afternoon in Mount Beach, and the streets were full of energy. Snoop Dogg had just left a local restaurant, his favorite place for a quick bite, when he noticed something unusual. Two groups of teenagers were gathering at the corner of the block, their voices rising, fists clenched and tempers flaring. Passers-by were throwing nervous glances at them, but they kept walking, not wanting to get involved. Snoop, however, couldn't look away. He pulled up his hood, got out of his car, and walked straight into the gathering storm. "What's with all this noise?" he asked, his voice calm but authoritative. The teenagers froze, their argument momentarily forgotten, as they recognized the man standing in front of them. He was Snoop Dogg, the larger-than-life hero of his neighborhood. But Snoop wasn't there just to be noticed. He was there to make a difference, and what he did next would not only end the conflict, but create a moment the world would not soon forget. The heat of the afternoon sun was falling on the pavement, but the intensity at the street corner was not because of the weather. Two groups of teenagers, about 6 on each side, were facing each other. The words were thrown like blows, each one more fiery than the last. The discussion seemed about to get physical. Snoop Dogg had parked his lowrider at the end of the block, intending to enjoy a quiet snack at his favorite restaurant. But as he was leaving, the screams caught his attention. Adjusting his sunglasses, he watched for a moment, assessing the situation. It didn't take him long to recognize the signs. This wasn't just a neighborhood fight, it was the kind of conflict that could escalate quickly and get out of control. "Not today," Snoop muttered to himself. The street vibrated with energy as Marks watched the scene intensifying between the two groups of teenagers. Each side was a cluster of tense bodies, raised voices and high-pitched words that cut through the summer air like blades. Snoop Dogg adjusted his glasses, his calm exterior hiding the worry he felt inside. "I had been in situations like this before, not only as a spectator, but as someone who knew what could happen if tempers didn't calm down in time." He approached with a measured step, the iconic sway in his unmistakable gait. As he got closer, the noise of the discussion seemed to decrease, as if his very presence had already begun to change the atmosphere. "What's with all this noise?" Snoop's voice cut through the tension like a cool breeze on a sweltering day. The teenagers froze in the middle of the argument. Some exchanged nervous glances, others straightened their posture as they realized who was in front of them. This was not just anyone. He was Snoop Dogg, an icon, a legend, someone they had looked up to all their lives. One of the guys, a skinny young man in a red sweatshirt named Yee, was the first to speak. "They disrespected my cousin, man," he said, his voice defensive and full of anger. From the other side, a taller teenager with braids named Malik replied, "Your cousin started. He said things about my sister, and I'm not going to let it go." Snook held up a hand, his manner calm but authoritative. "Wait," he said. "You guys are here in the middle of the street, screaming like this is going to solve something. Let me ask you, what is really going on here? What is all this anger worth?" The teenagers hesitated, surprised by the question. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of Snoop's presence silencing their anger. Snoop approached, his gaze alternating between the two groups. "Look, I get it," he said. "They feel disrespected, and now they are ready to fight. But let me tell you something, isn't this corner worth it? Do you know what happens when these things get out of control? Someone gets hurt. Someone ends up in jail, and for what? For a few words." His words hung suspended in the air, heavy with truth. Some of the teenagers started moving their feet, their defiant attitude starting to crack. Think about the people who care about you, Snoop continued. Your moms, your dads, your little brothers and sisters, do you want them to see you like this, here? Trying to prove something that doesn't matter in the long run? Yeah, the guy in the red sweatshirt looked down at his sneakers, his cuffs relaxing. Malik crossed his arms, his gaze softened as he exchanged a glance with his friends. Snoop let the silence settle in before he spoke again. This time, his voice was softer, more personal. Do you know? I have been where you are. When I was growing up, I had to make a decision. I could have been caught up in the same thing, throwing punches and getting in trouble. But I realized very quickly, none of that was going to get me anywhere, the real power. It's about staying calm, staying focused, and not letting anyone drag you into their mess. The teenagers were listening now, their initial hostility replaced by curiosity. They had heard about Snoop's rough beginnings, how he had overcome everything to become a global icon. Hearing it directly from him was different. This is what we're going to do, Snoop said, a sly smile spreading across his face. Instead of standing here throwing punches, let's see who has the best rhymes. The teenagers blinked, bewildered by the sudden change. Rhymes, Malik repeated, raising an eyebrow. Yes, rhymes, Snoop said, taking out his phone and putting in a bass. The rhythmic bass filled the air, and the tension faded away, replaced by a flash of emotion. Let's see who has the skills to turn this problem into something worth listening to, Snoop continued. You start. Jay hesitated, looking at his friends, but they nodded, encouraging him. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, the bass guiding his words as he began to rap. His lines were raw, a mixture of anger and vulnerability, but they had a rhythm that made everyone nod to the beat. When it was over, Malik took a step forward. Okay, it's my turn now, he said, his voice full of determination. His freestyle was more fluid, more polished, and had a playful edge that elicited cheers from both sides. Before long, the whole group was participating. Some rapped, some clapped to the beat, and some improvised beatboxing to add layers to the beat. The corner, which minutes before was full of anger, was now alive with creativity and laughter. Snoop leaned back, watching with satisfaction. That was the power of music, to bring people together, break down barriers, and transform conflict into connection. As the bass faded, Snoop addressed the teens one last time. Do you see what just happened here? He asked. They took all that anger, all that energy, and turned it into something great. That's how it's done. That's how you win. The teenagers nodded, their faces lit up with a newfound respect, for Snoop, for each other, and for themselves. When the impromptu rap battle was over, Snoop stepped forward, his hands outstretched as if to grab her attention. The bass of his phone was still faintly ringing in the background, but the power had completely changed. What had been a conflict-laden atmosphere was now filled with curiosity and anticipation. It's okay, Snoop began, his deep voice commanding respect without needing to raise the volume. They did their thing just now. I must say that I am impressed. But let me give you a little reality check. He turned to the group on his left. I felt that pain in your rhymes, man. You've been carrying heavy things. And Malik, he added, turning to the leader of the other group, you came with fire too, but it wasn't just heat. You were saying something real. The teenagers parted a little more upright, the rancor of their previous quarrel forgotten, replaced by pride that their talent was recognized. Now let me ask you something, Snoop continued. Have you ever thought about what happens when you put all that energy into building instead of destroying? Snoop changed his posture, crossing his arms while leaning back slightly. Look, I wasn't always Snoop Dogg. At the time, I was just Cowden Brothers, trying to figure out how to get ahead in a world that seemed to be against me. I had my clashes, believe me. But one thing I learned fast is that fighting is not the answer. You know why? He paused, letting the question float in the air. The teenagers leaned over, waiting for his next words. Because the world already wants to see us fail, he said, now with a serious tone. Every time we face each other, we just make things easier for them. But when we unite, when we stand up instead of tearing ourselves down, that's when we win. Snoop let his words sink in, watching as the teenagers exchanged thoughtful glances. Now, I'm not just talking about rap battles, he added. Am I talking about life? Do you have something to prove? Prove it by building something that no one can tear down. Prove it by showing the world that you are more than you think. Yi, the boy in the red sweatshirt, frowned slightly, his initial defiance replaced by a spark of doubt. But what if people keep looking for trouble for you? He asked. What happens if they don't stop? Snoop nodded, appreciating the honesty of the question. That's when you stay calm, he said. Let them talk all they want. You stay focused on your work, on your goals. The more they talk, the harder you work. And when you shine, trust me, they'll shut up fast. Malik, the leader of the other group, crossed his arms, but not in defiance this time. So, you're saying to just ignore them, let them walk all over us? No man, Snoop replied, shaking his head. I'm not saying you're a pusillanimous person. Stand your ground, but don't waste your energy on fights that don't matter. Do you see this street? This block? Do you think he's going to remember who threw the hardest punch? No. But she will remember if you did something that changed her. The teenagers nodded slowly, the truth of his words resonating with them. Snoop saw the change in their posture, their faces no longer marked by anger, but by understanding. Snoop looked around at the group, a smile appearing on his face. Okay, I'm going to leave this to you, he said, taking a step back. The next time you feel like fighting, ask yourself one thing. What can I do right now to make this situation better, not worse? He paused, looking each of them in the eye. And if you don't know the answer, call me. I'm always around. The teenagers giggled nervously, not sure if he was serious, but appreciating the sentiment anyway. As Snoop was getting ready to leave, one of the younger guys in the back spoke sheepishly. Hey, Snoop, he said hesitantly. Thanks for stopping by. Most people wouldn't have even cared. Snoop turned around, his smile widening. Nah, man, he said. This is my neighborhood too. I care because you matter. Never forget that. The words hung in the air as Snook walked back to his car, the soft knock of the door closing, marking the end of the encounter. The teenagers stayed for a while, talking quietly to each other. What had started as a clash between groups had ended with mutual respect and a lesson they would not soon forget. The soft beat of the bass on Snoop's phone filled the street, cutting through the tension like a melody of hope. The two groups of teenagers, who minutes before were ready to fight, were now frozen, surprised by the sudden change of tone. Snoop's calm smile radiated confidence as he looked both ways. All right, listen up. They have all this energy, all this heat, and they're ready to waste it on something that doesn't even matter. Let's see if they can channel that into something real. Snoop turned to Yi, the skinny guy in the red sweatshirt, and gave him a slight nod. You go first, buddy. Let's hear what you got. Yi's friends murmured behind him, some encouraging him, others skeptical. He hesitated, shifting from one foot to the other. Man, I don't know about this, he mumbled. You won't know until you try, Snoop said, the bass still ringing. Do you have something to say? Say it. This is your moment. Taking a deep breath, he took a step forward. His first lines were shaky, stumbling with the rhythm. But as he found his footing, his words began to flow. He rapped about loyalty, pride, and the struggles of growing up in the neighborhood. Her voice carried a raw emotion, each line striking with a weight that silenced any doubt. When he finished, his friends erupted in cheers, patting him on the back. Jay looked up at Snoop, who nodded approvingly. See. I told you. You have it in you. Then, Snoop turned to Malik, the taller teenager with braids. All right, big guy, it's your turn. Let's see what you can do. Malik smiled confidently, taking a step forward. I have this, he said, cracking his knuckles. His performance was more fluid, more polished. He rapped about respect, strength, and standing firm in the face of adversity. His lines were sharp and rhythmic, winning over feelings of approval even from his group. By the time it was over, both sides were clapping and laughing, the previous hostility replaced by a sense of camaraderie. Snoop clasped his hands together. That's what I'm talking about, he said. They've just proved they don't need punches to make an impact. Words have much more power than blows. The ice broke, and the energy completely changed. One by one, other teenagers stepped forward, improvising their own verses. Some were serious, some playful, but all were greeted with cheers and support. Even those who weren't rapping found ways to participate. Some started doing beatboxing, their rhythmic sounds adding layers on top of Snoop's original bass. Others were clapping along to the beat, the sound echoing off the buildings and filling the street with a vibe of unity. The impromptu rap cipher became a celebration of creativity, an absolute contrast to the confrontation that seemed inevitable only moments before. When the bass finally faded, Snoop stands in the center of the group, raising his hands to calm the teenagers. Did you feel that? He asked, his voice firm but powerful. The teenagers nodded, some smiling, others still catching their breath. That's the power of using your voice, Snoop continued. They turned something ugly into something beautiful. They think that someone passing by is now worried about who disrespected whom. No. They are seeing what happens when people come together instead of destroying each other. Jay and Malik exchanged a glance, the tension between them replaced by something closer to mutual respect. Snoop addressed the entire group. This is what I want you to remember. This block doesn't need any more fighting. It needs leaders. He needs people who can step up and make things better, not worse. And that starts with you. One of the younger teenagers shyly raised his hand. But what if people keep looking for trouble for us? He asked. What do we do then? Snoop smiled. Keep doing what you just did. Stand your ground, but do it wisely. Let his words do the talking. Show people that you are bigger than the drama you bring, and if that doesn't work. He shrugged his shoulders. Call me. I'll take care of it. The group burst into laughter, the tension firm before completely dissolved. As the teens began to disperse, Snoop noticed a woman standing across the street, holding her phone. She put it down with a shy smile when she saw that he was looking at her. "Were you recording this?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. She nodded. "I couldn't help it. It was amazing." Snoop chuckled, gesturing with his hand to downplay it. "Do what you have to do, but make sure you tell the whole story," he said. As the teenagers drove away, still excited by the unexpected intervention, Snoop walked back to his car. He looked over his shoulder, watching as Jay and Malik shared a laugh, something that would have seemed impossible minutes earlier. Climbing into the driver's seat, Snoop shook his head with a smile. Another day in the neighborhood, he mumbled to himself before walking away, with the bass of his previous freestyle still playing softly in the background. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as the teenagers began to disperse, their initial tension replaced by laughter and a sense of camaraderie. Snoop watched them from the edge of the sidewalk, casually leaning on a lamp post. What could have been a violent confrontation had turned into a moment of unity, creativity, and self-expression. That's when Snoop noticed the woman across the street. He was holding his phone, the lens pointed directly at him and the group. When their eyes met, she hesitated, putting the phone down slightly with a nervous smile. "Were you recording all this?" Snoop asked, his voice carrying all the way across the street. She felt, taking a step closer. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, he said. "I had to capture him. The way he stepped in and handled everything, it was amazing." Snoop chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, make sure you tell the whole story," he said. "This isn't about me, it's about them." He gestured toward the teenagers, who were now moving away in small groups, some exchanging phone numbers, others still talking about their impromptu cipher. The woman smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "The world needs to see this." By the time Snoop got back to his car and drove off, the video had already been uploaded to social media. The images captured everything: the tension at the beginning, Snoop's calm intervention, the rap battle, and the smiles on the teenagers' faces as they walked away. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. From Snoop's intervention, they appeared on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, accumulating thousands of likes, shares, and comments. The hashtags Snoop Stop the Fight and Rap for Peace started trending all over the world. The comments were not long in coming. "Snoop Dogg saving the streets, one beat at a time. This man is a legend. Who else could turn a fight into a rap cipher? We need more of this energy in the world." By the next morning, the mainstream media had already picked up the story. The headlines said, "Snoop Dogg turns a neighborhood conflict into a viral moment of peace. The intervention of rap, like Snoop Dogg, stopped a fight with music." The attention brought a renewed focus to the community. Local organizations, inspired by the video, offered to sponsor programs for teenagers in the area. Schools and youth centers began discussing ways to incorporate creative conflict resolution techniques into their activities. The teenagers of that day found themselves unexpectedly famous. Yi, the skinny guy with the red sweatshirt, was interviewed by a local news channel. "I never thought anyone would care what happens on our block," she said. "But Snoop showed up, and now everyone is talking about it." Malik, the leader of the other group, added, "It wasn't just about stopping a fight. It was about showing us that there is a better way to handle things." I'll never forget it. The impact of that afternoon spread through the neighborhood in ways no one could have predicted. Inspired by Snoop's intervention, local leaders began organizing events to promote unity and creativity. A month after the incident, the neighborhood organized its first community cipher. The event took place in the same place where the discussion had happened, now transformed with colorful murals and a makeshift stage. Snoop Dogg was, of course, the guest of honor. When he took the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. He raised a hand, motioning for them to be silent, and began to speak. "This right here," he said, pointing to the stage and the crowd, "is what it's all about. Turn conflict into connection. To take what divides us and transform it into something that unites us." The event featured performances by local artists, including Jay Malik, who channeled the mutual respect they had found in a collaborative rap. His performance brought the crowd to its feet, and Snoop couldn't hide his proud smile. Snoop didn't stop there. Partnered with local nonprofits to launch a series of free workshops for teens, focusing on music production, lyric writing, and conflict resolution through art. The program, aptly named Beats for Peace, quickly gained popularity, attracting participants from all over the city. During one of the workshops, Snoop addressed a group of teenagers gathered around him. "Music is not just something you listen to," he said. "It's something you feel. Something you can use to tell your story, to heal, and to generate change. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As the weeks and months passed, the neighborhood continued to evolve. On the side of a local building, artists painted a vibrant mural, depicting the moment Snoop stepped between the two groups of teenagers. In the center was Snoop, standing, with a microphone in one hand and the other extended in a gesture of peace. Under the mural were the words, "From conflict to creativity, lead the change." The unveiling of the mural became a community celebration, with food trucks, live music, and speeches by local leaders. Snoop stood in front of the crowd, looking at the mural with a mixture of humility and pride. "This is not about me," he said, addressing the crowd. "It's about all of us. Each of you has the power to make a difference. Never forget that." What had started as a chance meeting on a sunny afternoon had turned into a movement. The teenagers who once clashed on the corner were now leaders in their own right, mentoring younger kids and organizing events to keep the energy alive. Snoop, reflecting on the journey, summed it up simply. Sometimes all it takes is a moment, a decision, to change everything. Never underestimate what you can do when you show up. The story became a testament to the power of creativity, community, and courage, reminding everyone who heard it that even the smallest actions can create the biggest waves. The story of Snoop Dogg's intervention on that sunny afternoon had grown far beyond the viral video. She had become a symbol of hope and a model of how one person's actions can inspire change. Although the moment had started on a single block in Mount Beach, the effects were spreading across the city and beyond. Snoop was at the center of everything, but he was always quick to remind everyone, "This is not about me. It's about the message. It's about what we can do together." In the weeks following the incident, community leaders and organizations began reaching out to Snoop, eager to collaborate on initiatives that would keep the momentum going. The first major effort was the creation of a permanent program called Rhymes for Change, Rhymes for Change. The program, co-founded by Snoop and a coalition of local nonprofits, focused on using music and art as tools for youth empowerment and conflict resolution. Workshops, open mix, and mentoring sessions were held in schools, community centers, and even on the very corner where the initial incident occurred. Haji Malik, the The two teenagers who had led the opposing groups that day unexpectedly found themselves in the spotlight. Their lives had changed drastically since the video went viral. Yi, who used to be shy about expressing himself, discovered a passion for writing lyrics and acting. That day, Snoop showed me that he didn't need to fight to be heard, he said in an interview. Now I use my voice to tell my story and help others do the same. Malik, who had always been seen as the tough guy in his group, embraced his new role as a mentor. I used to think that being strong meant not backing down, she said. But Snoop taught me that true strength is in building something that lasts. Together, Jay and Malik started organizing their own events, encouraging the younger kids in the neighborhood to channel their energy into creativity instead of conflict. As the movement grew, Snoop was invited to speak at events around the country. She appeared on talk shows, conferences, and even in schools, sharing the story of how a moment of intervention had become a catalyst for change. During a keynote speech at a youth leadership summit, Snoop stood in front of a crowd of thousands. I didn't plan on being a part of something like this, he said. But when you see an opportunity to make a difference, you have to take it. That's how we started changing the game, one moment, one block, one person at a time. The audience erupted in applause, and Snoop's message resonated far beyond the event. Clips of his speech went viral, sparking debates about how communities could replicate the success of Long Beach's transformation. Snook was not alone in his efforts. Other artists and public figures began to join the movement, offering their support and platforms to amplify the message. Musicians donated time and resources to create tracks for the Rhymes for Change program, while athletes and actors lent their voices to campaigns promoting nonviolence and unity. Even the brands took note. A major athletic apparel company collaborated with Snoop to launch a limited line of sneakers, the proceeds of which went directly to fund youth programs in underserved communities. Despite the positive momentum, the challenges persisted. Some critics dismissed the movement as a fad, while others questioned whether real, systemic change could come from community efforts. Snoop addressed these concerns head-on during an interview. It's easy to sit back and say something's not going to work, he said. But the real question is, what are you doing to help? Change isn't perfect or quick, but it starts with action. And the action starts with us. One of the biggest milestones of the movement came when Long Beach hosted its first annual Beats for Peace festival, Beats for Peace. The event brought together artists, activists, and community members for a day of music, workshops, and celebration. Snoop headlined the festival, performing a mix of his classic hits and new songs inspired by the movement. But the highlight of the day came when he invited Jay and Malik on stage to share their story. These two right here, Snoop said, placing a hand on each of her shoulders. They are proof that anything is possible when we come together. They turned a fight into a friendship, and now they're here making a difference. Jay and Malik received a standing ovation as they performed a collaborative rap they had written for the festival. His lyrics talked about growth, forgiveness, and the power of community, leaving the audience inspired and excited. By the end of the year, the movement had become a national example of how creativity and compassion could drive meaningful change. Schools, community centers, and even law enforcement agencies began implementing similar programs, using the Lone Beach model as a guide. Snoop, reflecting on the trip during an interview, said, "This is not just about one block or one city. It's about showing the world what's possible when we stop tearing each other down and start lifting each other up. That's the real legacy." Months after the incident, the corner where the confrontation once broke out became a symbol of transformation. The vibrant mural depicting Snoop Dogg, J. Malik, now stood proudly on the wall of a nearby building, brightly colored and full of life. Underneath were the words, "Creativity over conflict leads the change." The mural was not just a work of art, it was a reminder of what the community had achieved together. Local teenagers often gathered at the venue, using the space for open mic nights, freestyle battles, and workshops. What was once a street marked by tension was now full of music, laughter, and collaboration. At the heart of it all was Snoop, who remained a guiding presence. He would often return to the neighborhood to review the programs, mentor the youth, and remind everyone of the power they had to create change. During one visit, he observed a group of young children taking turns at the microphone, their verses full of hope and ambition. "This right here," Snoop said quietly, "is what it's all about." The story of Snoop Dogg's intervention was not just a moment, it was a movement. What started as a simple act of intervening in a conflict became a legacy of unity, creativity, and empowerment. Snoop's decision to use his influence to uplift his community proved that even the smallest actions could lead to big changes. By choosing to inspire rather than turn her back, she turned a potentially violent moment into a beacon of hope. Teenagers who were once on opposite sides of an argument were now together as leaders, proving that anyone, no matter their background, could make a difference. Snoop summed it up best during an interview. "Sometimes, all it takes is a moment to change everything. But it's what you do after that moment that really counts." The message resonated far beyond Long Beach, reminding the world that creativity and compassion are powerful tools for transformation, and that anyone can be a catalyst for change.